We usually picture the natural world as a highlight reel of grace and power. Apex predators stalking the savanna, eagles soaring above pristine mountain ranges, and balanced ecosystems operating in harmony. But for a huge portion of the animal kingdom, there is no majesty. Every waking second is pure, unadulterated panic in a biological factory that doesn't care if a creature is exhausted, starving, or terrified. Consider a crab trapped in an endless loop of making microscopic sand spheres, a beetle that uses record-breaking physical strength to hoard animal waste, a shrew that starves if it stops moving for 2 hours, and a 36-foot sea monster that barely knows how to swim. Natural selection has no interest in comfort. If an animal can survive just long enough to pass on its genes, evolution checks the box and moves on. The result is millions of species locked in daily routines that operate more like a biological curse than a gift. The sand bubbler crab is about half an inch across, and its entire diet consists of incredibly low-nutrition sand. To extract enough calories to simply survive the day, they have to eat continuously for up to 5 hours straight. This animated diagram illustrates their grueling feeding process. They stuff their mouths with sand, filter out the plankton, and spit the clean sand out as bubbles. Zooming out, we see they meticulously stack discarded balls into clear paths to avoid re-eating them, pumping out thousands. They perform this frantic labor within a self-imposed prison boundary of about 3 feet. They are heavily preyed upon by birds, snakes, and turtles, so the slightest shadow causes them to dive into their hole. Then the ocean tide rolls in, destroying their intricate sand paths and usually the hole itself. When the water recedes, they rebuild the hole, step back onto the beach, and start eating sand all over again. They spend their entire lives furiously digging ditches that the ocean immediately erases. The desert dung beetle possesses a physical capacity that defies logic. Some species can pull over 1,100 times their own weight. If a human had that proportional strength, 2 people could easily tow a blue whale. They deploy this staggering muscle power tracking the smell of camel droppings across the scorching desert. The beetles that arrive late find themselves in massive chaotic brawls, grappling and attacking each other to carve out a single sphere of waste. This animated graphic highlights a brutal physics problem. The surrounding sand is too loose to bury the dung, so they must roll it backward to solid ground. Pushing blindly, if they hit a slope, the heavy ball rolls backward, dragging the beetle down with it. If they get stuck on the hot sand for too long, the heat kills them. If they do find stable ground, they bury the ball, eat it over a few days, and immediately catch the scent of fresh dung a mile away. Their biology equipped them to be the strongest creatures on Earth, and their instincts dictate they use every ounce of that power pushing feces backward in the blazing sun. The Etruscan shrew is the smallest mammal by weight on the planet. Being that tiny creates a fatal geometry problem. They have a massive surface area to volume ratio, meaning their bodies rapidly leak heat into the surrounding air. To avoid freezing to death, their metabolism runs in hyperdrive. They breathe 12 times a second. Because they are practically blind, they rely entirely on the hypersensitive, rapidly vibrating whiskers you see here to feel out insects in the dark. If they don't find and consume food within 2 hours, hypothermia sets in, and they die. When food is scarce or temperatures drop, they rely on a desperate biological fallback called torpor. Their breathing slows, their body temperature plummets, and they enter a localized coma to conserve fuel. Waking up requires violent, full-body shivering, contracting muscles 50 times a second to generate heat, a process that drains massive energy. This massive energy drain can actually kill them before they even fully wake up. When a mother has offspring, the pressure multiplies. The defenseless babies can't hunt. If a snake forces them to relocate, the blind mother leads her blind babies in a single file train, each biting the tail of the one in front of it, frantically searching for a new hole. The shrew gets no rest. From the moment it is born, it sprints against an internal death clock that threatens to shut down its organs the minute it stops chewing. Sailors spotting 36-foot ribbons of silver cutting through waves returned with stories of terrifying dragons, inspiring vintage illustrations of multi-horned sea serpents destroying ships. The actual oarfish is a solitary bottom feeder with almost no defense mechanisms. It lives deep in the pitch-black twilight zone of the ocean, hovering completely vertically in place, simply opening its mouth to wait for tiny krill and microscopic plankton to drift inside. Despite their massive size, they are incredibly weak swimmers. They lack the muscular fins needed to navigate or fight strong underwater drafts. They are completely at the mercy of deep ocean currents. Pushed toward the surface, the sudden pressure drop ruptures their internal organs. The mythical dragons wash up on beaches completely limp, surrounded by human spectators. Their immense length requires huge amounts of energy to maintain, yet offers zero predatory advantage. They spend their lives alone in the dark, until a random shift in water temperature drags them up to the surface to die. We tend to view biological adaptation as an upward climb toward a perfect design. In reality, natural selection is a blind, chaotic filter. It doesn't engineer perfection. It simply passes down the traits of whatever mechanism barely managed to reproduce. A crab continuously filtering sand, a beetle fighting over waste, a shrew perpetually starving, and a giant fish too weak to swim. They all survive just long enough to pass on their specific brand of biological limitation to the next generation. Human daily life has its stresses, but we possess the luxury of looking for meaning and comfort. For the vast majority of the animal kingdom, existence isn't a journey. It's a biological punishment they have to